Test, test. That looks good. I'm going to assume that's working. All right, so we're going to start. We're going to continue from where we left off last time, and we built this application that let the admin set a message, some sort of a welcome message here. So we go to the admin JSP, and here it is, and we submit that message. This is stored in the data store, and when users go to the home page, they see the message. Here it is. Okay, so now the problem that we're going to think about today, maybe solve, is to provide some functionality not for admin users, but for regular logged in users, that they can set a number. Is that it? Set a number or increment a number? What do we want to do? It does.
I think you said increment. Yeah, start them at 0 and then increment.
But that's easy, right? So maybe I'll leave out. I'll just do set a number, and then you can do the variation on increment. So set a message. We'll have here. This is the admin message. Let's do it like this. Let's have it so that the user is. Or no, maybe we'll do the set. We'll do the incrementing, I guess. So we'll let the user increment a number, and then save that number into the data store. Next time the user comes back, the user sees that number. And there's some sort of a global maximum number that's stored across the system that's presented to everybody. All right, it's kind of like all right, let's do that. All right, so how are we going to do it? So I had an email conversation with someone in the class about this, that when a non-logged in user comes to the home page, they see the max number in the system, and then there's like a login button. And if they log in, then they can see their personal number, which is initialized to 0. And then they can increment the personal number, save that personal number, and see how it compares to this global number, that max number across all the users. All right, so let's think about, so when we log in, or when we go to the home page, is where the users are one of two states, either that they're logged in or not logged in. So if they're not logged in, let's send them to one JSP, and if they are logged in, let's send them to a different JSP. It displays a different number. How does that sound for a strategy? Is that all right? And then there's another decision that you have to make here, is like whether to hide the JSP in the background and use a request dispatcher. Maybe that's what I'll do. Let me hide the JSP in the background and set a request dispatch. Use a request dispatcher. I'll show that to you. What we'll do is create a folder under WebINF. I'll just call it JSP. We'll put our hidden JSPs in there. Remember, anything under WebINF is hidden. It cannot be directly accessed by a request coming from the browser. So under JSP, let's add 2 different JSPs, one for the logged in user, one for the non-logged in user. Let's go ahead and add that. So this will be, so this is logged in. I'll say we'll go like this: home-logged in .jsp. And then we'll have another one, which is home dash not logged in .jsp. Maybe I should come up with better names, right? Just to be consistent, I'm going to change that name. So if we're logged in, and we'll just do it like that, and if we're not logged in, like this. Is that how I had the assignment? Or did we just force people to be logged in all the time? I can't remember. We don't have to do this. If we require the user to be logged in just to go to the site, we don't need to do this.
You should, yeah, I think that's what it is right now. We try to go to.
We just require the user to be logged in, right?
Yeah,
And we don't even have to do this. And I'm just gonna. This doesn't make sense. What? You have a question, David?
No.
I don't know if we need.
Didn't require anybody
Huh?
to log in unless I didn't require anybody to log in unless they were admin. At first, it was like that, and then I changed it.
How do we want to do? This is going to add time onto the development if we're going to do this, which is it's not bad to do. I mean, it's good to learn, but.
Well, mine's already set up to log in, so it redirects you to that login.
As soon as you go to the
How do you want to do it?
Yeah.
How many people want to build the application so that non-logged in people? You know what? I'm not going to take a vote on that. Let's just omit this. I think we should omit that, just in case I need to come back to it. I'll leave it there. Let's to access index.jsp. Let's require a login. So that means we're going to use a filter for that. Otherwise, we're going to get stuck, with details. I don't want to get stuck with details. This is index.jsp filter right here. Does this require a login? If the user is not logged in, send them to the login. It's the way we have it now. You have to be logged in. Okay. All right. So that makes it simple. So that means we're in here, and we're going to display a number. This is the message. This is the admin message, right? This is the admin message, and then we'll have, and this is the biggest number in the system. All right. And we'll start with the 0. We're going to stub this out. And then we'll have a personal number. There's the personal number. So that'll be 0 as well. Then we need an increment button. To increment the personal number. So we could set either we set the button handler, the click handler in our initialization code through JavaScript, or else we set the click handler here. We can do it here, right? You could just call it right there. Increment number. And that means that function needs to be defined. And we can do that here. And when the button gets clicked, we'll just do an alert. All right, here's the admin message, biggest number. Actually, I don't want that break there. This the admin message. I'll make this a span. So I don't get a break. And it's not a beautiful page, but I'm in index.jsp. Here's the admin message. Here's the biggest number, personal number, and we have a click handler on that. All right. Oh, we also have a save button. So this will be, say, save number. I'm going to save the personal number. And so let's get that function here. All right, try that. Whoops. That's the save number. So the increment is, right now we're dumping stuff into the global namespace, which is not considered good practice, but we're not gonna worry about it right now. Now maybe we'll worry about it. I'm going to define a globally scoped object called app, and I'll put everything under app. So this would be this would adhere to like the Google style guide that we looked at for JavaScript, and so this is going to be a function. An object, and then we can start populating that object with things like the window can have the personal number. We'll initialize it to 0. And these functions will be inside of the this app. Sorry, that's not window. This will be app. And these functions will be defined inside of this app object. So now we only have one globally scoped identifier in the system, app. That we introduced. There's lots of globally scoped identifiers that we could, in fact, collide with, but we're only going to put one in that soup. So here we have to change this. There should be app.increment. This is app.saveNumber. Yeah, let's try that. You know what? I'm going to bring up the JavaScript console just to look for errors here. So that's working. Good. And I also want to turn caching off. Disable caching. It's already turned off. And make sure you get your caching turned off. Otherwise, you could have it could lead to a problem. What do you call it? It could lead to debugging problems. I gotta turn this off. All right, so now what do we do? Let's increment the number. So now when the increment number function is called, we'll do this. We'll do app.personal number ++. And we'll set that in the write it into the DOM. So here we have the personal number, I'll use a span element for that. I'll just call it the pnum. And so that we'll use jQuery here. And we'll set the contents of that pnum span element. Nothing. We increment the personal number is app.personal number. I get the wrong one there, okay? Like that. Now we got that incrementing, but we're not. We need to save it, right? Let's get the we'll get the save to work. But there's another issue here. Like we're using jQuery here, and it is theoretically possible that this function could be called before. Maybe it's not possible. I think we're safe there. I'm not going to get into that. But this is where it's safe to reach into the document and make changes to the DOM. This is the jQuery, ready callback that we're registering here. And so when the DOM is safe to access, this function will run. But when we define these objects, we're just defining things in JavaScript. We're not actually doing anything. So in other words, this function can't run until the DOM is ready. But this doesn't run when we load the web page. It just gets defined. It doesn't actually run. All right, so let's save the number, and we'll do that using Ajax. Here's a function that gets the number. This is at when the system initializes. So I'll use that. Well, no, I'll do it up here. So here we have. Here's the save function right there. Let's do this. So when the user clicks the save button, we want to send the data using Ajax. So we'll use the jQuery Ajax function. And that function takes a configuration object. And then when the thing is done, we have a callback that runs. And we'll just do this for now, just to get it to working. We're just going to put these stubs in here. So that's the done method, and then we have the fail method. And the fail has a callback here. And it's this jQuery JQ XML HTTP request object. That's where that comes from. Of course, that could be, you can give any name you like there, but that's what those symbols represent. JQ is jQuery, X is XML, H is HTTP, R is request object. So that's what's getting passed into us. Also this text message as well. And that's a text message. That's a string explaining the error message. and it may not be there. Let's just use the same fail method here. Let's save some time. There it is. So we'll display this error. I'll do it like this. Text message may be undefined. If it's undefined, then we can use this OR operator. Is that right? JavaScript uses double lines for OR, logical OR?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so if it's possible that this second argument is not passed to us, depends on the type of message error. Here we're embedding this in this assignment. We're embedding this string, which could be undefined, inside a Boolean expression. So if it's undefined, it will be interpreted as false. And that'll give us the right response. So if it's undefined, we'll just say an error has occurred. In fact, let me do this. This is easier. I just stick it in there. That's how JavaScript programmers work. They just stick everything in one line. So we want to report the error message, and there is an error, a div here, and we made the color red. And if there is an error, then we insert using this HTML function. That's part of the jQuery object wrapper. And we call that HTML function. We pass in the text message. Of course, if that's undefined, then we're just going to say an error has occurred. And you know, that's a nice bit of code that we can use here as well. You know, I think we can set a global fail event and have that code in a single location, and that could be, so we can omit it for each time we do an AJAX call. So there's ways of making this code simpler. I'm not going to do that right now, though. And so let's test this thing. Here's AJAX, and then we're going to use these arguments here. Just going to copy those. The URL is required, so this will be, say, save number. Save number. And we're using post for everything. And the data type, this is the return value. This is what the system sends back to us. But you know, we don't care about what the system returns to us. You know, just omit that. And and here I'll say the personal number saved. Now this should fail because there's nothing. There's no resource, so we'll get like a 404, a not found error from the server. So that should trigger the error response. Let's test that. Can increment this. There it is. There's the 404 not found. And look at this. The text message that it gives us is error. It's not very useful. I don't want to dig into that now, but we could get more. We could basically report this if we like, but it's a development issue at this point, and if we wanted to make that user friendly, we'd do something else. So let's just do that, and then so let's go ahead and and implement this save number function. And I think the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to delete these. We don't need that. The way I'm going to do that is to configure it. Configure a servlet that does that saves the number. And so this is set message servlet, get message servlet. Let's do this. This will be maybe the save number servlet. Here's the save number servlet. And we'll need to get a URL pattern, a filter, not a filter mapping, a servlet mapping element for that. Let's copy one of the existing ones. So here, this will be save number, save number servlet. This will be save number. All right, so that is that's configured. Except we'll want to control that, although maybe it's not a big deal. We can use a filter on that to make sure that the person is logged in. This is our user Ajax filter. I think what all this does is make sure that the user is logged in. And let's look at that. This is the where is that? User Ajax filter. Let's user. That means the logged in user. This is we want to pass all of the Ajax requests through this filter. If the user is not logged in, then we'll say unauthorized. So we don't want to let any requests come in if they're not logged in. Otherwise, we allow the message to come through. So we need we have that filter already defined. We just simply need to set it. I didn't need to leave that area there. So here's the get message. We can just add another URL pattern there to this list, and this is save number. There we go. Now we need to define that servlet. We could copy one of these. Let's see, this is the set message servlet. Let's try that because that writes into the data store. Let's copy that. And this is going to be save number servlet. And here it is. This is a good warning. I don't want to get into that, but normally you don't suppress warnings. But this warning is okay to suppress. It just says that there's a warning that servlets implements the serializable interface. It means you can serialize them, store them, their state, and resume and restore them from that. And we'll just leave that turned off there. So the parameter, something's going to be sent into us. So we're going to get data, and we'll save it into the data store, right? So, but you know what? Before we do that, let's go ahead and comment this business out and do nothing, just to see if there's the console. I don't think that the application was reloaded so I'm going to manually do that. This is relaunch. Terminate and relaunch, or relaunch? I think it's terminate and relaunch. So now we have a save number servlet that does nothing. Here's the web page, incrementing the personal number. When we hit save personal number, what we did before was we got an error message, right? 404 not found. So it should find it this time. Personal number saved. There it is, because it didn't do anything. All right, so let's write it into the data store now. And so here's the, let's get the number. So it'll be passed in as a parameter. Oh, so get parameter called number. That means we got to make sure that that's coming in there. Let's look at that. Here's the oops, index. Yeah, this is it. Okay. So we need to send the number, and we use this data property of this config object that we pass into. I don't know if it's config object. The config object we're passing into the Ajax function. And the data is an object with name value pairs. And we just name that number. That's going to come in as a parameter. And let's send in the number. And the number will be app.personal number. That's the personal number that we're maintaining here, and that we're incrementing here. All right. Now this is, just to emphasize this, that is a string, and this is not. This is a reference to a variable, reference to a string, right? Yeah, a string, I guess, or an object. And so we want to resolve that reference. But if we had a variable named number, that this would be replaced by that value. But we want this to be, this is a field name or a property name. Maybe that's not right. If I do this, if I define number, I'm trying to think, so always forgetting what I'm doing here. If I define number to be, like something like that, is this number going to become 9? In which case we would need this. I don't think that's interferes at all. I don't think that this doesn't. If we wanted number to be the, I don't think that it works like that. Actually, I'm not sure. I don't know enough about JavaScript to be confident of myself here, right? Let's just play it safe, okay? So that's an open question. Play it safe there.
It makes sense that it would.
Huh?
I think it makes sense that it would.
Yeah, it makes sense. Otherwise, you can't have these, variable attribute names. Or of course, you could do something like, if you could build your data object and give it, something like this. You could do it like that. So I know that that'll work. Now, number here is a variable reference, or a variable. But I think here it's in this notation. This may not be this part of that property value expression is may not. I don't think it takes variables here. But once again, I'm not sure, so I'll just do this. We can test it later. Here we go. So here is what we're doing. We're passing the number in there. And so we pull the number out there. Now that's a string. And what we can do is we're going to want to write it into the data store. So let's do that. But you know, before we do that, let's do it incrementally. Let's see if this is in fact working, right? So how are we going to do that incrementally? Let's print to the let's print it to the console. We're going to get this logger, and we're going to call it. I'm just going to call it app. And I'm going to print it as a warning because if it's info, we have to reconfigure the logging system. So let's print the number that we pass into the servlet just to see that we're getting the right number. So we should be writing the number out to this console window. I'm going to clear the window just to reduce the noise. And here we go. Once again, see that things are being logged here. And I'm going to clear the window. It's not our message yet. Increment the personal number. I'm going to hit save personal number. It should display 6 over there. And it does. 6. Yep. It's a warning, I mean, because we logged it as a warning. All right, so that's good. That piece of machinery is now working. Let's go ahead and write it into the data store at this point. And when we put it into the data store, we'll need to associate it with the user. So, you know, at this point, when this save number servlet runs, we don't know if we have an entity for the user or not. And rather than putting the details of that in here, let's create maybe a user class. And this is our user. I'll call it an app user. And let's you know, maybe what we'll do here is we're going to do this. Just save number. Pass the number in. And then this stuff here. So this is, you know, this servlet usually is referred to as a controller, and the JSP is referred to as the view. And then there's a third element in a model view controller architecture that's called the model. And the model is involved with expressing the business logic. It's responsible for saving the data and for implementing the business rules, the rules of the application. So let's go ahead and create that app user class and use this as part of the model. That'll be an object. And here we have, if you look here, on this app user code, we don't know which user to save this for, right? So we need to tell the model what user we want to save the number for. So maybe what we need to do is, I mean, there's so many different ways of doing it. We could pass the user in here, and we could get that user out of there, just like in the, where is it, the, this filter, user Ajax filter. You see we pull out the user here. We know that the user is logged in. We pull out this user service. And look at that. Before we, we did the work here of connecting to, you know, this user service, checking to see if they're logged in. Let's go one step more. That when we forward execution to the servlet, let's give it the you know, the results of our work here. We'll do a little bit more work. So we have this request object, and we're going to set an attribute called user. This is our Google user, and that'll be user service dot get current user. See, we don't have to do it in the filter. We already got this reference to the user service. We checked to see if the user was logged in, and let's go ahead and pull that user object out and set it as an attribute in the request object. And we're passing the information on to the next component in the processing chain. So here, this user could actually, we can pull this out of that request object. So we do get attribute and we want the user. This is one way to do it. Another way to do it is would be to you know, this is like style 1, say, and let's look at style 2. We get this app user, and we're going to call find on the app user, and we'll pass in the user object. So we got the Google's user object here. And let me organize imports on that. I am not doing that correctly. It must be Shift Command O. Here it is. That looks it. And once we get the user, we can call find on the maybe by the user ID. Do find by user ID, but we'll use ID as like the primary key in the data store for our users. And then we would do app user dot maybe save number or set number. Maybe that's set number, save number. Maybe save number, I guess. Or something like maybe we do it like this: app user yes dot set number, pass in the number, and then the app user we call save. The other way to do it is to stick everything in this save number. Now let me look at a third alternative here. You know, it's worth thinking about it because, you know, once we decide on a style, we're going to want to stick to it, right? How do we separate controller code from model code, for instance? That's a concern here. Here we have we pull the user out, and how was I? What was that? Was it going to do it like this? Pull the user out, and then get the this user ID, and is that an integer? Get get the user ID. Does that return an integer? It's a string. That's an uppercase S. So we get the user ID, and then essentially we're going to use this form here and to hide the Google user. We're going to hide the Google user object from the model. These are the three choices that I'm presenting. Certainly there's going to be more possibilities there. So here we minimize the work in the controller. We just say, I got a Google user. It's in the request object as an attribute. I'm going to pull that Google user out and pass it to the save number method of the admin user class, along with the number that we want to save. The second choice here is we pull out this Google user object. Remember, we have the Google user object, that's this, and we have the app user object, that's this one. So the app user class encapsulates the information about the user that we're storing. And the user class is given to us through the Google App Engine API, and that contains information that Google is providing to us. Here in the second form, we call the find method of the app user class to get an app user instance. And then the app user has attributes, and one of the things it has is a number. We'll set the number, and then we tell the app user class to save its state into the data store. The third choice here resembles number one, except we hide the Google user class from our model code, and do that by extracting, the user ID and then passing it into the save number, static method save number. I like 1 or 3, and I'm leaning towards 3. Any opinions? Votes? no heated arguments. This is great. You know, this is heaven. If I was sitting in here with a bunch of Java developers, you know, it'll have an argument right now. Okay.
You don't need to send them the whole class, so I would say 3 is better.
3. I like 3 because it puts a little work on the controller side. Let's hide from the model, you know, the Google ID, and that lets us in fact use other authentication systems later on that are all done sort of on the controller side, and the model it remains the same. The model is like, hey, the user's got a string. That's how I know the user, by a string ID. You give it to me, and that's my user. So we hide we'll hide this Google user from the model. I don't know. Maybe that's not a good idea. You know what? I don't want to think about it too much more. I guess we could try that then. All right, let's try that. So we'll leave this out.
Comment the other ones out.
Yeah, let's comment them out. Yeah, I'll leave that in there in case we need to use it. Let's see, does that work? Yeah, good. All right, so that means we need to add this save number method. I think I can do that. Look at that bump. Is that nice? Okay. Let's go ahead and actually, I don't think I'm not sure what my style is there. Save number, we have the user ID, and here it has the number to save. So let's go into the data store, and where did we do that? In here, this get message, we have some data store business. Here it is. Lots of stuff here. And so we pull out the we get the data store service here, and then what we need to do is we need to find the user by the user ID, and so let's we'll have a we're going to have a user kind. I'll call it app user, I guess, right? An app user kind, and we'll specify the ID for that kind. So here we're creating a key, and so there, basically the data store contains entities, and an entity is like an object with name value pairs in it. So we can attach. For a given entity, we can attach any kind of information to it through name value pairs. It's like each entity is like a little hash map, but the entities are grouped into kinds, you know, or types. They call it a kind in the Google App Engine data store. And so let's name a kind app user. And now, so in this group, in this kind, app user kind, let's identify one of the entities in there by the user ID string. So we're constructing a key. The key is to look up the entity in the data store. We need to have a key to look it up directly. And so here we just call get with the key, and that returns our entity. And that entity will may or may not have a property called a number. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not right. This is user ID. Sorry. And why is this going like that? This should be, is that all right now? There we go. So we create the key that we use to look up the entity. We look up the entity here. We get a reference to the entity. We hit the data store, get the information back, and then we set these this property, and then we need to save, or I think it's put. Is it put? No. Is it save? No. What is it? Is it set? Set. No, but we want to write it into the data store. How do we write that? Oh, we got to use the data store service object, and I think it's put. There it is. So we put the entity back into the data store. Now this thing is not thread safe because here we but it doesn't matter. We get the entity and then we modify the entity. So we're doing two things. We do one, we get the entity, then we modify the entity. We get the entity, then we put the entity. Thing is, someone else could have deleted the entity after we got it. And so when we go to put it back in again, it recreates it. I don't see a problem here. So we don't need a transaction. A transaction is where you take multiple operations, like getting it followed by putting it, two operations. You want those to be atomic. Either they both succeed or they both fail. Right? But in this case, it doesn't matter. If get succeeds, we get the entity, and someone else removes that entity from the data store. When we go and call put, we're just going to put it right back again. So for this application, I don't think it matters. All right, so we're not going to get into too many details there. So we're writing that in there, and this is entity not found exception, and this is going to be something worth reporting. Let's maybe we'll get the logger here. Just call it the app, and this is it's beyond a warning, right? It's an error. Actually, wait a minute. What happens the first time we try to save the number? The entity may not be there. So we can't find that entity. Then it's okay. Let's go right ahead and do nothing. Watch this. Because the first time we save the number, the entity may not be in the data store. Or will not be in the data store. So we're going to look up the entity here, and we're going to ignore it if it's not found. We need to find that outside of this try-catch block. Oh, sorry, this is entity. And so try to get the entity. If it's null, then we'll create a new entity. So we need to create a new entity there. Can we do that? Can we just create a new entity? It takes a key, a string. I think that's the one we want here. Let's do it like that. That's a key and a string. We'll just pass the key in there. So if it doesn't exist, we'll create it, and then we set the property here, and then put it. If this doesn't need to be in a try-catch block, I think. I don't think setting the property throws an exception. And then here is the, this is not the right exception here. So what is the possible error, or let's see, put would throw what kind of an exception? I'm going to press F2. Does it show information about exceptions in here? It throws all of these exceptions. Let's just catch all exceptions. And we'll log that. Not was it log? Is there like error or fatal? Not fatal. Finer. Warning. I guess we'll just do a warning. That's all right. And the warning will be maybe e dot, maybe get message here. I don't think, can I pass in a stack trace? No. Let's just print the message. So we should write that entity into the data store. Let's terminate and relaunch. Now, one thing to think about here, I'm just going to reload that page, that's okay. Let's take a look at this admin console. And it's going to be /_AH admin. Is that right? Oh no, admin, and then data store. I think admin is okay. Here's the data store viewer. And we have an admin message. We only have one kind in the system right now. We don't have an app user kind yet. Well, we're going to create an app user kind, hopefully. And let's get everything ready here. We've got our JavaScript console open. And check for error messages there. Nothing, right? Looks clean. Let's clear that. And let's increment the personal number. Let's save the number. Personal number saved. There's no error message returned. Let's go to the data store viewer. Let's refresh. Look, there's the app user. That's a new object, a new entity of type app user. And let's list the entities. There's an app user. This is the key. That would be the string for the Google user ID. And then let's keep looking this direction. Here's our number. We have an attribute called the number. It's in there. Well, here's the ID. Sorry, this is the ID, and this is the key. I think that I don't know what that is, and I think this is the string that we passed in there. And let's go back to our app. Let's increment a few more times. It's an 8. Save it. Let's go back here. Oops. It's a 3, but let's refresh that. There's the number. It's now an 8. So we're writing into the data store. We're okay with that. Getting some logging information related to the data store. We're not printing that logging information. Time to persist, all that stuff. So that's useful information. All right, let's keep moving. Now, I don't need that. I think I'm gonna stop there with the recording because that's a kind of a logical unit of a material that we covered.